Okay, we've been sent a case to evaluate an implant in site number 13. Um, as we always do, let me go ahead and duplicate the plan so that way we have a comparison of where we were and what we're going to be doing. And the first thing we want to look at is our checklist on this case. So we want to look at a mesial-distal positioning. And the first thing I'm going to notice right now is um, we are pretty close to this adjacent tooth. Now, that doesn't mean that this won't work, but if we were to look at this space right here, sorry, that didn't come out as good as I wanted. If we would look at this space right here to that root right here, we would see that our implant is definitely more towards this area right here. So in an ideal world, we probably want to have this implant a little bit better centered like so. Now this brings the sinus in and may bring some other things into play, but just again, going by our guideline and our plan. The next thing we want to look at is our buccal lingual positioning. And again, in our buccal lingual positioning, one of the things that we can see here is we have our outline of bone roughly right here, our outline of bone roughly right there. We're pretty well centered. I'm a little concerned about some thinness here, but not overly concerned, certainly with guided surgery. One thing I would like to do is look at what the safety margin is on this particular case, and it's set at 2. What I like to do is go ahead and go to 1.5, especially if I'm not going to be flapping. So there we go. And I think that's going to be okay. If anything, um, I might just tilt this implant back just a hair there to give a little more space right there. The next thing is our bone level. And in looking at this particular case, what we can see here is this is our bone right there. We're just outside of it right there. I'm not honestly overly worried about it. It would be nice if we had some CEREC data, but my guess is that this is our soft tissue right there. So we've got plenty of soft tissue thickness there. So on the bone level, we're good. Some people may say, let's do this and graft back there. I just, not my favorite thing to do, but this does bring in some issues in terms of, the location of the bone height and the difficulty in getting restorative parts there. But I think we're going to do fine there. Next would be vital structures, and in this case, we have a sinus. So one thing we have to know is that we're going to need to do a sinus lift, and to do that, we're going to have to, on a sloping sinus wall, it's a little more difficult. So we're going to need to drill to about right here, lift this sinus membrane up with some osteotomes. It just becomes a little bit harder. A nice end cutting implant like the Noble Active does make that a little bit easier. Next, we want to look at our occlusal table. And right here, we can see that if we utilize the adjacent teeth as our guidelines here, let me leave that back up there actually. Here we can see the lingual aspect. Here we can see the buccal aspect. And here we can see the mesial of this tooth. Here we can see the distal of this tooth. If we were to draw a circle in the middle, it'd probably be somewhere about right here. So we're not off by too much. We're just slightly lingual and slightly distal to where we need to be. So to correct the lingual issue, we'll just tilt the implant a little bit to the buccal, and to correct the distal issue, we'll just tilt the implant a little bit to the mesial. Next is our occlusal plane, and to look at that, we'll simply go like so, and this looks pretty darn good. We're following the curve of speed here pretty nicely, so I'm pretty confident with this plan. Next would be our sleeve here, and our sleeve looks like it may be hitting a little bit on the mesial of tooth number 14, maybe a little bit on the distal of number 12. I would say that this is fine, just need to make sure to adjust and make note of that. And then we want to go through our 360 view. So again, in our 360 view, we can see we have space between the adjacent implant. We can see that we're definitely into the sinus, and we're good bone level. So again, our plan wasn't that far off. So if we take a look at the original plan, okay, and if we take a look at the new plan, we can get an idea of the changes in the two. Thank you again for sending the case.